Welcome to episode 2 of Sports and Discourse with your host, Derek Stevenson. And today, I got one of my best friends, my best man, Matt Ellis, on the line with me. What's up, big dog?
What's up, man?
Oh, nothing, man. I wanted to get you on the line today and talk some MMA with you.
You know I'm game for that.
Yes, sir. So, whenever it comes to MMA, like, I'll admit, I'm not really up on it. Like, it's kind of like an afterthought to me, but I know that's your stuff, and like, you like my main go-to guy for the MMA, man. So, what I want you to do first is just tell me, like, when did you really get into MMA seriously, and like, what kind of like attracted you to the sport to make you become like a super fan?
So I remember, I guess my getting into the sport is kind of two phase. I remember years and years and years ago when the first couple of UFC events came out, when it was bare knuckle, there were no weight classes, no rules, nothing like that. I remember that me and Tyler, and you know, Tyler's our brother. We would sit and get the pay-per-views for like 1, 2, and 3, and we would have little plates of pennies, and we would bet, 5 pennies that this dude was going to knock this dude out, or this dude was going to do this or whatever. And so that was like, UFC 1, 2, 3, whatever it was. And then, the story, UFC they were having some troubles getting sanctioned in certain states and things like that because of, there wasn't a lot of structure around it with weight classes and things like that. So it kind of went by the wayside for a little while.
It was kind of like, it was almost kind of like a circus act, kind of.
It was. I mean, it was like it was thrown together, and it was cool, man. I don't know if you ever remember seeing highlights from the first ones, but there's a 450-pound guy.
You're talking about that like black sumo wrestler type of dude?
Yeah,
I know what you're talking about.
And he's fighting 180-pound guy, and the 180-pound guy just crushes him. So it was cool in that respect, but it did need some structure and some rules and parameters for how the fighting and making it safe and stuff like that. So it went away for a little while, and obviously my fandom kind of went away with it. And then obviously, Dana and those Alpha brothers or whatever, they buy it and they start bringing it back on the map. And what really started getting me back would have been probably 14, 15 years ago was Iceman, Chuck the Iceman Liddell.
Yeah, man. That was your guy, man.
I loved watching him fight, man. It was fun. He was fun. I mean, he was a banger. Like he just wanted to stand up and bang. And so the first in my opinion, the first real big MMA rivalry was him and Tito.
Yeah,
and
man.
So I started getting on that train. I remember watching all of Chuck's fights and started really kind of thought I was watching the infancy and kind of watching the sport be born again with them creating divisions, and then introducing the women's division and then different weight classes, and things like that. And so
would you say that like Chuck and Tito was kind of like the sport's first superstars, kind of?
If you're talking about the mainstream UFC, I would agree. Yes, I think if you talk to a diehard enthusiast about MMA and its origins, it kind of goes back to Royce Gracie and Dan Severn. Those guys that Ken Shamrock. Those guys that really were grinding at the very beginning. But as far as this is kind of the thing that I think maybe really sparked the interest and really put it on the map. I think Tito and Chuck had a lot to do with that.
Absolutely, man. I remember them boys getting at it, man.
Yeah, it was no joke. So that's what really got me into it, man. And I've just been hooked ever since. And
you
it's
have
really
been,
cool.
Man.
I have. I love watching it. It's just something that I look forward to, and I really enjoy now what I'm seeing is the depth in all these divisions, and I'm sure we'll talk a little bit about it later and why I have people, where I feel people are and the all time and stuff like that, and have a lot of thoughts and reasons behind that. But it's really cool to see the depth and see people coming up now. And I think it's really, really exciting for the future of MMA.
Before we get into that though, because I would like to talk to you about that. Do you remember how much Dana and the boys actually purchased the UFC front for?
No, I don't. I want to say, oh, man, I want to say it was somewhere like less than 50 million. I think it was, I don't know, man. It was cheaper than you would have expected.
And how much is it worth now?
They sold it a couple years ago, for four and some change billion.
Oh man, that's crazy, man.
Yeah, definitely.
That's nuts, man. But anyway, so so I do want to talk to you about where you would rank some of the guys, man. So if you had to do a UFC, or not even a UFC, but just mixed martial art Mount Rushmore, who you got on that thing?
Oh man, golly, that's a tough one, man. I think Anderson Silva goes on there. Just for the longevity and what he did.
How many times did he defend his belt, man?
12 or 13.
Yeah, so
it was an absurd number.
He had it for like, what was it, about 2 or 3 years straight?
It might have been longer than that. Nobody touched him for years. Yeah, nobody could touch him for years until Chris Weidman finally came in and was able to knock him out. And then in their rematch, he broke his leg kicking, doing a calf kick on.
I remember that, man. That was crazy, and that was kind of the end of it for him, wasn't it?
Yeah, he's still doing his little celebrity boxing, and he's had some MMA fights and some decent ones against good competition, and he's won, some of them. But age caught up with him, and talent caught up with him. But I got to put him out there, because of just his sheer dominance in the sport. I like to also look at what people do for the sport to put it on the map, even if they're not necessarily the best fighter. And so some people get real emotional about my next two because of why. And one of them is Ronda. I don't love her as a person. And I think that in the women's division, I know that in the women's division today, she's not the fighter that she is, but she single-handedly put the women's division on the map. And also, she was outperforming all other male fighters at the time in terms of pay-per-view buys. Yeah. And so, it's just like what she did for the sport in that respect is just second to none. And then the second person there for that is Conor. Conor is, he's a lightning bolt, but Conor's one of those guys that, when he comes out of the tunnel, walking to the cage, you get goosebumps because everybody wants to see Conor fight. And so, for what he did, I think of the top 10 selling pay-per-views of all time, he's got like 8 of them or something. It's just crazy.
Yeah. That doesn't surprise me at all.
Yeah. And then for my fourth one, it's a tough one, man, because there's so many guys that I think are worthy of it. I'm leaving out John Jones, and I'm leaving out Jones because of all the out of the cage stuff. Right. You've got George St. Pierre, you've got freaking Khabib, you've got, it's Stipe Miocic. There's a ton of them. I guess if I had to give one right now, I would probably put Khabib on there just because I don't think there's anybody in there. I don't think there's just nobody in that division that can mess with him right now. Now, if you ask me this question in 5 more years, I probably have new people to put on there for you. And maybe some people get shifted off like Kamaru Usman. That guy, I don't know who beats that guy right now. He's fighting Colby Covington again in November. And I don't know, man. He looks like he could be a dude that eventually could be in the contention for the greatest of all time. Just the way his game is developing. So that'd be my 4 now. But I have a feeling I'll be changing that in 5 years or something.
So let me ask you a question. Who's the first one to go off of the list if somebody springs up and takes a spot?
Probably Anderson, just because I think other people are going to eventually accomplish what he accomplished, and it might kind of push him off a little bit. Anderson didn't bring as many people to the sport as Ronda or Conor, but his sheer dominance was what gets him on there. But he would go, and then I think Ronda would probably go. It's going to be hard for me to take Conor off, not because I think he's necessarily the best fighter, but you can't argue with results. And the dude just freaking gets pay-per-view buys. I mean, you're making millions. You could put a bunch of crap on the card and put Conor at the top, and you're going to sell 700,000, 1 million pay-per-views or something,
Yeah, for sure. So do you think that people like Ronda and Conor are like the main reason that the sport has just become so popular? Like, is it something about or mixed martial arts that just breeds like superstars versus like, let's say boxing? There's not really many superstar boxers.
Yeah, I think it has a lot to do also though with they're the only show in town right now. With boxing, you have several different promotions with several different belts, and look how long it took us to get the Fury and the Wilder fight. Right. People were clamoring for that fight for forever and couldn't get it because this one promotion doesn't want their guy to get beat because that's their cash cow. And I get that, but I think the cool thing that people like and respect about MMA is, or I should say UFC, is that Dana is going to put you against other people. You're not going to run and duck and hide. It's the big dog show in town, and there are other up and coming promotions, but right now it's the big dog in town. And if you are the heavyweight champion, you're going to fight the next guy in line. And if you beat him, you're going to fight the next guy in line, and so on and so forth. So you're always getting top notch contenders going against each other. And so that to me is a big draw. There's no running and hiding and years worth of negotiations to get us a Fury versus Wilder, or a Mayweather versus same thing with Mayweather and Pacquiao. How long did it take us to get that? And I would argue that they were both on the other side of their prime when that happened. Absolutely. How would that fight have been if it happened 5 years before? When Pacquiao was just running through people.
Yeah, it would have been a real show of who really is the best, because sometimes boxing will kind of leave a lot of questions unanswered. But as far as UFC goes and mixed martial arts in general, like you said, it's kind of like everybody's coming up the ladder and there's nowhere to run. You either knock people off or somebody knocks you off, and that's just the way it goes.
Exactly.
But the reason why I kind of like it like that is because it kind of gives the fighters more longevity in their career, because you can still be a champion and have 3 or 4 losses on your record. And then you can get beat and work your way back up to the top. But kind of in boxing, it's almost kind of like once you lose 1 or 2 fights, they kind of just look at you like, well, who's next? Who's up? And then it's kind of like your career is done.
That's true. No, you're absolutely right. And I know that's a prime example of Stipe, and even the current heavyweight champion. Well, the interim is Cyril Gane, but Francis Ngannou and Stipe fought. He beat Francis Ngannou the first time. Francis Ngannou comes back, knocks him out. They'll do a Francis versus Stipe 3, and he'll get his shot at redemption and get a shot at being the heavyweight champ again and on top. And the same thing, Stipe Miocic got knocked out by Daniel Cormier, and then he came back and he knocked Daniel Cormier out in the second fight they fought, and then the third fight he won a unanimous decision. But he's able to absorb that loss and still not fall any further than the second or third ranked heavyweight in the world. And then he's back there ready to contend again for a title, so that's something that I think people like to see. Their guy is going to, as long as he's, right in that sweet spot for age, they're going to get to see their guy fight several times. As long as he's worth the salt, they're going to get to see him fight several times, in his career.
Exactly. Do you think that, Dana is kind of like, could you attribute him to a whole lot of the superstar creation? Because if you look at it, a whole lot of mixed martial artists have been in movies and they do commercials. Like, I can just think of, just right off the top of my head right now, GSP was in Captain America, Randy Couture, Expendables, Ronda Rousey, Expendables, Gina Carano, Fast and Furious, and
Deadpool, right?
Deadpool and The Mandalorian. Man, it's just for some reason, I think Rampage was in the A-Team. For some reason, them guys just take And I can even throw sports entertainers like wrestlers in the mix too. For some reason, those guys just become superstars, and you just never really see that with boxers for some reason.
No, you really don't. And I don't know. I don't know if it's necessarily attributed to Dana. I think that he has, that he has definitely created a monster with the UFC, and he's the face, even though he's not the majority owner. He's the face of the UFC, the guy making the deals and stuff like that. I think that maybe behind the scenes, he is very good at recognizing what talent he has that can go out and expand that brand and be in those movies and make their money and let them get their bag, outside of just what they're doing in the UFC. So, I would say that he's got something to do with it. I can't put my finger on if it's all him or not, though.
Got you. Now to swing it back to Conor McGregor, man. So, how do you feel about the state of his career at this very moment?
Well, I think that, man, it's tough. No one can argue that the guy is a fantastic fighter. I think that he has just become such a megastar. He's worth so much money that maybe the desire's gone a little bit. If I don't know exactly how much he's worth, but I know he sold his stake of that Proper 12 whiskey and got somewhere in the neighborhood of a couple $100 million on top of the fact that he got
That's
whatever
nuts.
125 million out of the Floyd Mayweather fight. There's rumors that he's pulling tens of millions of dollars off of UFC gates. And so the guy's probably worth $500 million. And so what drives you? What's that fire in your belly that is going to make you get up every single day? Because when he was at his best is when he didn't have a penny to his name,
right?
And his only choice was go out and fight to provide for myself and for my family. And I'm not saying that he doesn't necessarily have that desire, but like, why are you getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning and going to run 10 miles and then going to the gym and training with pads on for 2 hours and then having lunch and then going back to the gym to lift? And why are you doing that if you can be on a yacht out in the Caribbean all day or in the Mediterranean and have chefs and butlers and everybody serving you? It doesn't strike me as something that a person would want to do if they had all that luxury and their life is literally changed. They could be waited on hand and foot. Whereas you have a guy like Dustin Poirier who just beat him, and make no mistake about it, Dustin Poirier is a multi-millionaire now. I have no idea what he's worth, but if somebody just made me say, I would say he's worth between maybe 10 and $15 million. That's a life-changing sum of money.
Absolutely.
But it's not $500 million. So I think he still sees, hey, I still gotta promote my brand. I still gotta grind. I gotta get this up to 30 before I retire, before I walk away from MMA. His clock is ticking. The longevity of these careers are not, they don't allow you to go into more often than not, they don't allow you to go into your 40s and 50s at a high level. And so, and then you got these other guys that, they're making 100, 150 a year, for showing up for 3 or 4 fights, and they're just trying to get a performance bonus or a knockout of the night bonus and get that extra 50 G's. Those guys are waking up every day just grinding,
Right.
So I think that's to me, I think that's what's happened with Conor. And I love it, man. I wish that we could get the old Conor back because he was a dominant fighter. People can say what they want, that he's Nick Tap out and all this kind of stuff, but he's one of the few people that have ever won a round against Khabib.
Right.
I mean, that's a fact. And he's a hell of a fighter. Is he in that gym every day for 8 hours a day like some of the folks that are grinding right now? I don't think so.
Yeah, if he's anything like me, he's definitely not, because 500 million, you wouldn't get me to do anything stressful.
Yeah, who wants to go get punched in the face and submitted and knocked out, for when you have 500 million sitting in the bank? I mean, it takes a special kind of person to want to do that.
Yeah, man, I'd rather just go get me a new Porsche or something, man.
Exactly.
Well, moving on, I want to ask you, do you think that the rise of this like celebrity boxing / exhibition fighting, do you think that it's going to actually like challenge like boxing and mixed martial arts as far as like the number one like combative sport, or do you think this is just like a flash in the pan?
I think that it's going to make a serious challenge to boxing. I think from an MMA perspective, I don't know if it will challenge it to the point where it's going to take it out or anything like that, but it's definitely going to get its share of viewership and dollars at the gate and stuff like that. You take somebody like Jake Paul and Logan Paul. They are, you have 50 million people that want to see them get knocked out, and then you have another 50 million people that want to see them knock someone out. And so that's a cash cow for Showtime and these promotions that are putting that stuff on. So yeah, I think that we're going to continue to see this kind of stuff take off. I mean, that's your big one right now, the Paul brothers. But look at man, one of them was able to get Mayweather in the ring. Yeah, that's pretty impressive.
That's unbelievable to me, actually.
It is. It really is. And the fact that they were able to guarantee him, I think, $100 million for showing up there tells you if they're able to guarantee him 100, they're pretty confident in what they're able to pull in. And so I think we've seen Lamar Odom do it. We saw Nate, he got knocked out, but we saw Nate do it. We've seen a couple MMA fighters get in there.
Do you think more MMA fighters will try to use that as like a second career?
Possibly. I think if you listen to what Jake Paul is saying after his fights, he's paying those boys. I mean, he said it to Tyron Woodley after this last fight. He got more out of that fight than he made in any fight in his UFC career, and he's probably right. He probably did.
That's wow, man.
So it is. So I would say that some of them probably will. I do think you got to be somewhat of a decently known name. I mean, people looking, they're like Ben Askren. Who's that? Well, he was a pretty well-known name in MMA for a long time with another promotion before he came over to UFC. Didn't exactly have a stellar UFC career, but he was a unlikable dude. He's a kind of an out of shape, curly-headed white dude that just wrestled. He couldn't strike for a lick, and it showed. He got knocked out, but he was pretty well known. Tyron Woodley, he's a former champion in the UFC, and not just he's a dominant champion for years. And I think age caught up with him a little bit, and you had some young up and comers that were able to kind of push him on out. But I would see some of them doing it, but I think they're going to be kind of some of your more bigger names, just because they have to have a little bit of that draw, to offset the Paul brothers coming up or whatever to fight them.
Right.
But I'm agreeing with you though. I think that it's going to continue, and I think you're going to see more and more celebs and athletes and stuff like that starting to jump in there for a quick paycheck. And it could be a bit of a shit show because a lot of them aren't trained. I mean, to Jake Paul and Logan Paul's credit, they're decently trained. I mean, they're decent boxers. If they went up against professional boxers of their size, they're probably getting beat up pretty bad, but they're beating up the average Joe on the street without a doubt.
Yeah. Some of these dudes though, like I watched Adam Pac-Man Jones and his fight, and he was on Shannon Sharp's podcast, Club Shay Shay, and he was talking like, man, I'm from the hood and this and that and woo woo woo, and he's like, I ain't know Nate Robinson and he was terrible.
Yeah, yeah.
Like he didn't get knocked out. I will give him that, but he was terrible, man.
Right. Well, when you put gloves on and that, a lot of that one punch knockout power goes away because of those big heavy gloves on, that takes away a lot of what you think that you have. And then it goes into technique, and man, just regular old guys off the street, we don't know technique. We just go out there and throw haymakers in a street fight,
Yeah, definitely, man. What I want to ask you also is, currently, what do you think is the most impressive division in mixed martial art?
Oh man, that's a good question. Gosh, I think that probably lightweight right now, and that's the division that Khabib retired out of. You've got some studs in that division. So, that one, Middleweight's pretty stacked right now. That's where Kamaru Usman is, Colby Covington, Gilbert Burns. You know, your lightweight division is your Dustin Poirier. You've got Justin Gaethje is out of that division. Michael Chandler is in that division. I'm missing Charles Oliveira is in that division. He beat Michael Chandler to take the interim title, but there's some dudes in that division. It's a tough one. So I think if I had to pick one, that would be it. I think there's up and comers all over the place. There's some good up and coming light heavyweights that are going to bolster that division. It's top to bottom.
You know what's crazy?
Right now.
I remember when light heavyweight was undoubtedly the toughest division, man. It was some dudes in there, man.
Yeah, and there still are. I mean, I wish that Jones could get over his contract stuff with UFC and get back, because, you know, he's talked of jumping up to heavyweight to fight Ngannou and this, that, and the other, which would be awesome.
Yeah, but I would love to see him fight heavyweight, man.
Yeah, without a doubt. But I think.
Do you think he would be successful?
Man, I saw a picture of him, and he put on a lot of freaking weight. I mean, a lot of freaking weight. And so I think the picture that he posted, he was 245 maybe, and he looked like a bigger dude. So from a technical aspect, he's technically far better than Francis Ngannou. But all it takes is one from Francis Ngannou. We saw that with Stipe. He hits you one time and it's over. And you got to think, this dude is cutting weight. He's a solid muscle, and he's cutting weight to 265, and he's not a fat 265 walking around.
Right.
He's a lean, muscular 265. That's scary. That's a big, scary dude. So, but I do think if he put his mind to it, he could be. What reason have we been given that he's not? He's beat everybody. He's beat everybody else. I mean, he beat DC.
Right.
You know,
that's your guy right there, man.
I do like DC, but yeah, he beat him pretty handily.
Would you like to see DC in an exhibition match?
What you mean, like an exhibition boxing match?
Yeah.
I mean, I would like to see him fight. I would like to see him fight Jake Paul, because I do think he would. I think he would give him a bit of action. He's a big dude, and he would be one of the bigger dudes to fight him. And people knock him. He can take some shots, but he can also dish them too. Right.
Yeah. I think he's one of them dudes. I think some of the other dudes play around with them boys to try to make it a show. I don't know if he's got that in him. I think he would be like ready to finish it immediately. And
I think you're right.
And I think he would, honestly.
Yeah, I think you're probably right.
Yes, sir. Well, before we wrap it up, man, what any matchups and or events you looking forward to for the rest of the year?
Oh yeah, there's a couple of bangers of some cards coming up, man. So and the later on this month, in I think it's like the last Saturday in September, is 266 UFC 266. So that's got it's got Alexander Volkanovski. He's the featherweight champ right now, fighting Brian Ortega. Volkanovski has fought Max Holloway twice already, beat him both times. I thought personally that the second fight, I thought Holloway won. So you got that. And then you got Valentina Shevchenko. She's a dominant flyweight champion in the women's division. She's fighting a chick named Lauren Murphy. Nick Diaz and Robbie Lawler, I think they last fought 17 years ago.
They're crazy.
About to fight. I know, they're about to fight. There's a heavyweight fight on that card. That's Curtis Blades against Jairzinho Rosenstruck. That should be good. You got a wrestler against a guy with a kickboxing background. And then the fight, or the card I think that I'm most looking forward to right now would have to be the one in November, and that's 268. That's when we get Usman versus Covington 2. And I was talking to got a couple of guys here in my office that are big UFC fans, and we were talking about it earlier, and it's like I'm gassed up for it already, and it doesn't even happen until sometime in November.
Right.
But I'm really, really looking forward to it, because of all the people that Kamaru Usman, and he has looked dominant, and he's been more active than Colby since the first time that they fought. He beat him, knocked him out, or TKO in the 5th round, but he's definitely been more active, and he has continued to refine his skills. He was kind of a wrestler, or just take you down and pull you down into deep water and just maul you. And he's starting to develop a stand-up game now. He knocked Jorge Masvidal out, last time they fought, which nobody ever knocks Jorge Masvidal out. That dude's got an iron chin. He did it with a nasty jab or a nasty straight right. But at the same time, nobody to this day yet has been able to tag Usman like Colby did. And I first thought, man, he's going to starch Colby in the second fight. He's going to starch Colby. But I went back and I've watched that fight like 4 times now. And Colby lands. Colby just doesn't have dominating power, but he definitely lands, and his motor is relentless. Right. And the one thing that I will give Colby credit for, and this is kind of what I'm talking about when I talk about like Conor, Colby doesn't, he's an idiot and he talks all kinds of crap. I think it's a gimmick. He does all this MAGA and, all this kind of crazy, make America great crap and all this stuff. And, but at the end of the day, I think he's doing a lot of that, as he may feel that way, but I think more than anything, it's an act. But to his credit, I think he grinds and he doesn't post it all over social media. And nothing against Conor, because he's got millions of followers, but Conor's posting a picture of him in the gym every day. Right. I'm running, or I'm walking. Well, he's not now because of his leg, but riding a bike, running, swimming, fighting, whatever. It's just like, if you got to post about it every day, are you really doing it? Or are you just taking some action shots and boosting those followers, which more power to him. But Colby's one of those dudes. He doesn't do all that. And so I think he's just quietly getting better and better and better. So I'm really, really looking forward to that fight. And it's a banger of a card, man. I mean, there's some great fights on that card. So I'll be looking forward to that. The next 3 events all got I'll be buying them all. They all look fantastic.
Oh, that's what's up, man. I'll probably be at your house watching them with you, drinking some bourbon, man.
Yeah, you're always welcome.
Well, on that note, man, I think I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up, man. I appreciate you talking to me, man, and giving me some knowledge on MMA, man. Before we go, do you got any shout outs or any plugs you want to drop, man?
No, I'll just give my boys here at work, Chris and Cole Arias. They're my work MMA buddies that we always talk. They're big into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and they love UFC as much as I do. So we always got to come in and sit down and talk about whatever fights happened over the weekend. So I'll give them a little bit of credit for making me stay sharp on my knowledge.
Oh, that's what's up, man. Maybe in the near future we'll have to all get together and do a little show together, man.
Yeah, they'd love it.
That's what's up, man. Well, all right, brother. I appreciate you, man. We'll talk to you soon.
All right, man.
All right. Thank you.